Welcome to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com. And now, Flock Talk. Hello, all you happy flockers out there, and welcome to Flock Talk. My name is Craig Hart, and I am here with my world-famous co-host, Sarah Hannon. How are things going over in your world, Sarah?
Good. I don't know if my household counts as the world, but certainly famous at home.
Yeah, it's over here. There's been a lot of, sickness going around, certainly, and my whole house has been falling like dominoes. Started with young Mr. Christopher, who is always the first to get sick because he's constantly sticking his hands into his mouth and nose and eyes. It's funny, it's kind of hung around for him, and then my wife got sick, and so she was home from work for a couple of days. And on one of the days, I was like, okay, guys, mommy is sick. We're going to have a quiet rest day. Nobody bother mommy. You need anything, come to daddy, etc. Christopher raises his hands like, he pointed his finger in the air like he was calling a waiter too. He's like, I just want to make sure everybody knows that I am also not feeling well. So that's what's been going on over here, but I think everybody's largely on the mend. And it's great because we have a great guest today as well. If you want to kick us off there, Sarah.
Our guest today is Gwyn McNamee. Gwyn is an attorney, author, editor, wife, and mother who loves to write stories with a bit of suspense and action mingled with romance and heat. When she isn't either writing or voraciously devouring any books she can get her hands on, Gwyn is busy adding to her tattoo collection and stirring up trouble with her perfect mix of sweetness and sarcasm, usually while wearing heels. Welcome, Gwyn.
Thank you for having me.
It's so great to have you here. To begin, I would like to ask you which attribute is more compatible with wearing heels, sweetness or sarcasm?
Oh, sarcasm for sure. It's much more easy to be sarcastic when you're an extra 4 inches taller and, have that power.
Yes. See, I don't wear heels because I fall down and I have a fear of heights. I maybe a half an inch and I'm just like, that's good enough. And they have to be like thick. So really just sneakers or any shoe is enough for me.
Well, I have to agree with Gwen. Heels work for me too.
Yeah, well, and they really make your legs look good.
And they do, yes. The calves look amazing in heels.
Yeah, you have a well-turned calf, Craig, and it's due to all the years of heel wearing.
But I did want to ask Gwen to maybe tell us a little bit about her path to becoming an author. Started out as an attorney. How did that turn into creative writing?
So I've always done creative writing. I was a writing intensive English major and political science double major in college, always with the intent to go to law school because I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 10, but I always did creative writing on the side. I mean, I probably have 200 various stories and various levels of completion that I've written since, middle school, high school. And I initially started out kind of in the book world as a reader. And I started editing for some author friends, kind of in the earlier infancy of independent publishing, when there weren't a lot of freelance editors out there. And so I began as an editor and did that for a while, started working on some of my own stuff kind of in the background when I had time, which wasn't very often because I'm a criminal defense attorney, a trial attorney, so I was constantly in the courtroom. But I kind of worked on projects in the background, and then the time came in 2015 where we relocated from Wisconsin, where I'm from, to Nevada, which is where my husband's from. And I was also pregnant. So the timing kind of worked out great during the move, or terrible during the move, depending on how you look at it, for me to, move while I was 5 months pregnant across the country. And I decided I wouldn't take the bar exam in Nevada to get licensed to practice here, because I wanted to stay home with the baby when I had the baby. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to take all those half-finished stories that I have on the computer. I'm going to finish one of them and I'm going to publish it. And so I had already kind of been part of the book world for, 10 years as an editor and as a reader. So I kind of knew the process a little bit. I definitely messed it up a lot in the early years. But that was how I started. And my first book I ever published under this pen name was Savage Collision. And that is still by far my most popular series. People just love that series. And that's the Hawk family. And Pink Flamingo is going to be doing book 2, which is Tortured Sky, which I'm super excited about. And I'm actually going to be launching a second generation of the Hawk family. So their kids are going to start coming the end of this year and next year because people love that family so much and they want more of them.
That's great. I mean, if you got, of course, read-throughs with an original series, and then you can kind of hook those existing readers and pull them over to a new but related series. I like that.
That's the hope. Crossing my fingers. Best laid plans. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, marketing and the publishing world, indie publishing world especially, it's tough to know what's going to work. And sometimes projects surprise me, and then there's been other projects I thought were a home run that weren't. So it's tough to call.
What do you find easiest about writing? And then what do you find to be the most difficult?
Oh, gosh. Easiest is the ideas for me. I am never short of ideas, and I'm a plotter. I'm very good at seeing the story in my head and being able to lay it out on paper. So I know where I'm going when I start writing. I can do that very quickly. I actually help other authors with plotting as well because I'm really good at it. So that's never my problem. My problem is when I hit the midway point of writing a book, I'm like, I just want to get to the end where it's like really exciting and there's the climax and, then the resolution. So I always have that lull in the middle of the book where I like walk away from it for a couple days because I just want to get to the exciting part. So for some of my books, I definitely write the beginning first and then I'll write the end and then I'll go back and write the middle because it's easier for me to get all those really exciting parts out quickly and really well if they're fresh in my mind and I'm excited about writing them. And then by the time I get done writing those, I then have the middle kind of more clear in my head because I'm like, okay, that's how it ended. I'm going to go back and I'm going to write a totally banging middle that's going to be awesome. And so for me, the middle of the book is the hardest part.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because if you've written like the ending, for example, you can write that middle with all kinds of foreshadowing and little threads that you already know that are going to happen. So that makes sense. I'm listening to an audiobook right now by James Scott Bell, who's a writing coach who's been writing and teaching for a quarter of a century, and it's called Writing from the Middle. So he talks a lot about middles and whatnot, and I haven't finished it yet, so I have no wisdom to share, but I do recommend it. But what is something about you that people might find surprising, do you think?
I think people would be surprised at how quiet I can be. Like, I'm a very, extroverted person and I'm very loud but I love kind of just being alone and, having it be quiet for long periods of time and, sitting and reading a book or, sitting and doing something else. And people will sometimes be like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. And they're like, well, you're not talking. And I'll be like, well, just because I like talking and I like having a conversation doesn't mean I don't also enjoy just some peaceful quiet time. Mm-hmm. Especially because I have a 6-year-old. So peaceful quiet time is very hard to find in my house.
Yeah.
I hear that. Craig and I are both parents to twins.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So we
quiet,
definitely...
peace and quiet's at a premium for sure. So I totally get it.
One of your most recent books is Billionaire Lumberjack. Tell us about that book. And will there be an audiobook?
Yes, I'm so excited. Billionaire Lumberjack was kind of, I don't want to say a joke, but it kind of started like a joke. I was talking to my friend Christy Anderson, who I also co-write some books with, and we were like, oh gosh, billionaire in hiding, but he's also a lumberjack. And we were kind of joking around about it. And then I was like, oh my God, I really want to write that now. And so I did. And the premise is that he's a billionaire and he is in hiding, lives on a very, very remote mountain in Washington State. Nobody knows his real identity or who he is. And the kind of public suspects he might actually be dead based on some things that happened in his past. So he's really truly kind of in hiding. The only people who know he's alive are like his assistant and the board of directors for the company that his family owns. And they're trying to get him to kind of come back and step back into the public spotlight at the beginning of the book. And he's like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm happy here. And then a snowstorm hits the mountain. And he stumbles across, or she stumbles across him, a woman whose car gets stuck in the snowstorm. And she's, trudging through the woods trying to get to his cabin because she can see his smoke. And she collapses and almost dies, and he has to rescue her. And some delicious forced proximity ensues. And it's a really steamy book. There is kind of a slow burn buildup, but it's a really, really fun book. I loved writing it. And I'm super excited because Pink Flamingo is going to do the audio.
Yay.
And I'm so excited to hear it. I've been waiting for it. And I can't wait to hear the finished product.
So it's cast and on the road?
It is cast. Yeah, they
Very
announced
exciting.
the casting last week. Lee Daniels is going to be doing the female chapters, and I absolutely love her.
She's great.
Yeah, she's fabulous. And Bryant Walker is going to be doing the male voice. And I'm so excited.
That is, you scored a good pair there. Nice work.
Yeah, that'll be great. I cannot wait for that to come out. And thank you for being part of Pink Flamingo, part of the flock.
I'm so excited to be working with you guys. And all my friends who are looking to do audio, I'm like, talk to Pink Flamingo. So
We're fun.
I love
Nice.
working with you guys. It's been a really fun process.
Good. Now, sticking with Billionaire Lumberjack for a minute, if that was made into a TV series or a movie, who do you think you would cast in the lead roles?
Oh gosh, that's hard. Billionaire Lumberjack, I mean, he's kind of dark and mysterious, but he's also, kind of rugged. I kind of picture like a Henry Cavill type, minus the British accent. Appearance-wise, that's kind of how I picture him. And I think he would be fabulous. Shirtless, with his axe, hacking at some wood. Like, I'm good with that. I would watch that all day long. Girls, I mean, for the females, I kind of picture somebody like Jessica Alba, because she is like super sexy, but she also can look kind of sweet and innocent. And so, plus she hasn't been in anything recently, and I would love to see her do something like, again, because she's one of my favorite actresses.
Yeah, that would be a great pair. Getting back to the craft of writing, what is a piece of advice you would give to a beginning writer?
I always tell beginning writers, just write. I edit for a lot of people. Most of my clients have been with me for a long, long time. I don't really take on new writers anymore, but when I did, I always told them just write. Don't get bogged down in kind of the rules of storytelling or the rules of writing, especially with your first book or, your second book. That can all be fixed later. I mean, you can fix a plot hole. You can fix the sentence structure. You can add things. You can move things around. You can alter the story. And I always find that people do their best writing and best storytelling if they're not so concentrated on all of that kind of little minute detail stuff. If they just write the story, they tell the story that's in their head, they can go back and fix anything. And I, love helping people do that. That's one of the reasons I like plotting with other authors is, helping figure out how can I make this a stronger story? Where can I add more tension? Or how can I change this character's story arc? Or things like that. That can all be altered once you get kind of the initial stuff out. So I always say kind of word vomit, get it all out, then go back and fix it.
That's good advice. Now, what's coming up for you? What are you currently working on?
Well, I am currently working on that second generation of the Hawk family. There's going to be a prequel called Nighthawk that's going to be in the Unexpected Ever After anthology coming out in September. And then the first book of the second generation, which is Ruthless Hawk, will release in February. And so those are occupying a lot of my time right now. And I will probably be writing them, through the end of the year. The Hawk books are long. They're 100 to 120,000 word books. So they take a lot of time to get it all out there, to get the story perfect.
Imagine so. Sounds fantastic. We'll be looking for all of those. And now that wraps up the main part of the interview, but we do have a special segment of bonus questions that we like to call Hot Six. Are you ready?
Yes.
Sarah, take it away.
Buckle up, listeners. It's time for Hot Six. All right. What is the most overrated book you've read?
Oh my gosh. Probably Moby Dick. And I like classics. I love classics. I have, the leather-bound Reader's Digest classics set.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't get Moby Dick. It's not, it doesn't speak to me.
There's a lot about whales.
Yeah. And excessive
Right.
descriptions of whales.
What famous literary work have you never read but feel like you should have?
War and Peace. And I've tried to start it so many times and I just can't do it. And it's one of those where, I know what the story is. I mean, it's been out for so long. It's kind of hard not to know what the basic plot of the book is, but I just can't read it. And I don't know if it's because I've been reading so much popular fiction that now going back to that style of writing is harder for me. But, I read most of the classics in high school or college, and I still continue to reread some of my favorites. But that one I can't get into it.
If you could be any animal for one day, what would you be?
I would be my dog because she's a spoiled little brat, and we always just joke like, God, you lead such a rough life. She gets to sleep all day on fluffy beds and gets her belly scratched and goes on nice walks and, plays with my kid. And it just seems like a really nice life.
What is your biggest grammatical pet peeve?
When people use that instead of who. So, I always tell my authors, if it's referring to a person, you should use who. And go and search the word that in your book. And number one, 90% of that's can be removed and should be. But the ones that you're leaving, make sure that it is not referring to a person, because if it is, change it to who.
That's a good one.
So instead of like, Craig Hart was the guy that hit me in the face, I would say Craig Hart is
promised
the
you'd
guy
never tell.
who hit me in the face.
That is correct, Sarah.
All right.
And I would say 90% of fiction gets that wrong. And I don't know if it's people weren't properly taught that in school, or if it's just become so accepted because we say it that way when we speak that people are just like, I'm just going to leave it. But that's one of my big pet peeves. I went to Catholic school, and it was hammered. Grammar is one of those things they hammer into you in Catholic school. And so that's one of the ones that just drives me bonkers.
I'm amused actually by that, just to tangent for a second. Is Catholic school also where you learn to write the hot, spicy romance?
No, it is not.
Oh.
It is not. Although one of the trilogies in my Deadliest Sin series does have a hot priest. But no, it is not. My Catholic parents are just embarrassed like you wouldn't believe that this is what I'm doing with my life right now. So, they're like, oh, we had this daughter who was a super successful criminal defense attorney in Wisconsin, and then she moved to Sin City and started writing smut. And,
Hey, now there's a plot for a book.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, it definitely conflicts with my Catholic upbringing. But I do have another book called Filthy Friend where, I kind of explored the Catholic guilt, Catholic upbringing thing a little bit with the character because I find it funny. And there's a lot of fodder there. So.
Okay, back on track. Looking back over your entire lifetime, what is your most embarrassing favorite song?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm still a sucker for the New Kids on the Block. And in fact, I'm seeing them again in 2 weeks. And I will bust out Hangin' Tough or Step by Step, like at the top of my lungs, singing it, even like in a store. If I hear it on, it comes on over the loudspeakers in the store. I mean, and I'll do the dance moves and everything because I was born in 82. So it was right at I was the right age for the height of the New Kids craze. So I'm still a blockhead, and I love them, and I will go all out in public. I don't even care.
That is awesome.
What one book do you wish you had written?
Probably my favorite book of all time, which is Wuthering Heights. I have reread that book 1,000 times, and I collect different editions of it. To me, the Catherine Heathcliff romance or non-romance, depending on how you look at it, it's so good. He's such a great anti-hero and dark, tortured, character. And I look at that and I reread it now, and it makes me wish I was a better writer when I reread it, because the language is so beautiful and the story is so beautiful and so well told, and it's so angsty. And it's like, I can cry reading that book, and I've read it 1,000 times, and I know what's going to happen. I've read those words before, but I'll still cry, and I'm not a crier. So I wish I could write like that. And I don't know that anybody writes like that anymore, but it's just such a beautiful book that, if I had been alive back then, I wish I had written it.
All right. That's all we have today. Gwyn, thank you so much for being on Flock Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great morning.
It was a pleasure.
Have a great day. You've been listening to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. This podcast is produced by Pink Flamingo Productions. Editing by Craig Hart. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com.